All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm happy to see all your smiling faces. So Cami today is going to be kind of leading our discussion. She's been doing some research about, I guess I can let her explain it more. I don't want to explain it wrong, but what I understand is like the um, kind of the similarities between learning a language and learning music. So like music literacy and language literacy. So I'm really excited. I think it'll be a really interesting topic. She said she's learned a lot and it's really interesting to her. So I'm, glad she's willing to share with us what she's been learning. Um, we also want to share a little bit about we're revamping the reports tab, and I know there are lots of issues with that. So we want to hear your guys' feedback on what you want to see there or what changes you want to see. So we have a lot of awesome stuff for today. So Cami, would you like to do that discussion first or? Okay. All right, sounds good. So we made like a little sketch. It's not pretty at all. And I wasn't able to get it. So I'm like, whatever. It's not even at all what it's going to look like. So I'll just try to explain. Okay. I'll just try to explain what it's going to, like the basic function of it. So you can kind of understand what we have in mind for the reports tab. Cami, would you be able to contribute to this as well? Because Asher's kind of freaking out, and you were there when we were going over our ideas. So if you want to kind of explain the three main areas.
Sure. Let's see. You guys can hear me, right? Okay. So we, right now when you go to reports, it just says 7-day report, and you have a drop down that shows you all of the different options for reports. Well, they're updating the look of the reports page. Yes, thank you, Anne. I wonder, I don't have the ability to make Anne's the biggest screen, but so what we're going to do is have it in 3 categories. We're going to have individual reports, group reports, and what was the third one? Oh, the challenges, the leaderboards. So when you go to the reports page, if you go to individual reports, that's going to be where you can pull up a report for a student or your own report that's going to show those 7 days, what they practiced, what percentage they got on each thing, all of those, that information. When you go to group reports, this is going to be where you're going to see the SASSR reports, that the whole group. You're going to see the practice minutes reports. You're going to see the trophy case reports, which I think they're going to call lessons. They're going to change the name of it. Reports, because it's technique and method that those reports are for. And am I missing a report? I think that's those 3. And then in the challenges.
What ones did you get? Did you get SASSR?
Lessons. SASSR, practice minutes, and the trophy cases, which we'll call probably lessons.
So in that also will be any custom reports that you guys have. Like if you have
custom reports.
A book that you made and there is a report for that, that'll be in the group reports, as well as like any of the boot camps, things like that. When your students do something in the library that has a report that corresponds to it, it will show up under the group reports.
And what about group minutes? Will group minutes still be there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yes, thank you. That one will also be in group reports. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then the challenges will just have a report for every challenge. Is my audio?
As well as no, it is. We can hear you.
You're good. Let me see if I fix this here.
But so it'll be the challenges, but it'll also be like the Ninja Saga, so Ninja Arpeggio Ninja, Scale Ninja, Sight Reading Samurai. All of those things will be, anything that has a leaderboard will be under that one. So those will be like the main 3 categories. And the idea behind it is that like right now, when you're looking at the reports page, it's a lot of wasted space, and it's like not super user-friendly, and it's really hard to actually find the reports that you're looking for. It's like this one little box with the drop-down menu. So we're going to split it into 2 sections. So we have student management, I think is going to be called. So you have, where you can assign classes, you can organize your students, all of that kind of thing will be its own thing. And then there will be reports. So it'll be 2 separate things, and you won't have to go searching for the reports. It'll be much easier to find them. So we're thinking it'll be a lot better, but we want to hear your guys' concerns and suggestions, because we want to make sure that it's really what you're wanting out of this, because some people use reports for their own use, a lot of people do, but the teachers are really what those reports are for. We want to make sure that they're actually useful. So what do you guys think of the new plan? Do you have any suggestions or anything you want to add?
Is there a way that we could have the report go back to the past week? You know, if the
Oh,
student
that
comes
would
on
be
a
nice.
Wednesday, they can only see Monday through whatever the past,
So a
or maybe it
longer.
is for 7 days. Yeah, I guess it does show 7 days, right? But if they could go back and see what they had done previously.
Yeah.
Like because I looked on my reports, I do a little report from Sunday to Sunday, but they can't ever see that. So I was curious.
Gotcha. So would you want something that's like the last 30 days, or something where you can like put in from this date to this date and then see that?
That would
Yeah,
be
either way I think would work.
Okay. So I will have to ask about, because I think what happens is they actually get rid of that data after the 7 days so that
Okay.
it's not like clogging up the server.
Yeah,
But
that's
I'm
a lot of
sure,
information.
yeah, it is, because it's very specific information, how many times you practice things and what percentage you got on each day. So it's a lot of specific information that they have to keep track of. And then after those 7 days, or after that day falls off, so does the data, I think. So we'll have to ask them what we can and can't do as far as that, like how far we can go. But I like that idea, because I also, sometimes want more than 7 days available to me. So I like the idea.
Maybe ask for 14 days.
Yeah, I'll make a note of this. Just things I can ask them about. But yeah, that's great. Anything else?
Well, I put in a comment, and I think this was stated previous in our meetings, to be able to put our assignments of what you want them to be assigned to for that week
Okay, yeah. So
in that area.
that is going to be in the student management tab, I believe. And very soon we should have in the library, where we have our new categories, one of those will be shared with me, which will kind of fulfill that purpose in one way. But we definitely want to make it like we've even talked about being able to put due dates on things, and having like the things that the due date is most near show up first in your library. So we've talked about a lot of different ways that we can do that. So we definitely will keep that in consideration. It's a big thing on our priority list. We're just not sure exactly the execution of it, exactly how we'll do it, but it's definitely on our minds.
Oh.
So I'll put that there too. Sorry, I'm taking notes so I don't forget what to ask about. Anything else you guys can think of? I guess I can ask that too while I'm here on the assignments. Is there a specific flow that you would like to the assignments? Do you want it to send them reminders? Do you want to know when they finish something, or you get reminders when they get certain scores? How do you want that assignment thing to work?
I guess you can say method, techniques, library, and then bundles. I guess, to where they can go to each section. And then maybe even eventually, if you want to put your own comment, to say, study these theory notations. Because I have Google Classroom where I have worksheet. I can put, other things for them to do. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So being able to add comments and add assignments in the different sections.
Correct.
I like that. Anybody else? Do you have any input on how you want the assignments to work?
I like the idea of a reminder popping up for them when they log on.
If there's any way to add like an audio recording to the assignment. So I work with a population where a lot of times the parents' English is their second language, or they also kind of have some struggles with literacy, where if I can verbally say, let's have your student do this, that will carry a lot further than written words.
Okay, so when you first said audio recording, I was thinking you were saying like you want the student to upload audio of them playing something. But now I think what you're saying is you want to be able to speak your comments rather than type them, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So I work primarily in an area where literacy is very low for the caregivers as well as some of the students.
Okay.
So I'm always really invested in looking at ways where I can make something where it's auditory, where they
Yeah.
can listen to something again.
Yeah, and yeah, so there that there won't be any like misunderstandings with like
Yep.
the words, if you can speak it. So that makes sense. Okay, cool. I saw a lot of you though go, oh, when you had the same misunderstanding as I did of wanting to be able to let your students add audio recordings. So is that
I
something that
do
you're interested
like,
in as well?
sorry, I was gonna say I do love that idea as well. So
Okay, yeah, I saw a lot of you like your eyes lit up. So thought that was something you guys were interested in. So I'll add that as kind of a separate thing. And we have talked about that before. We also would like to be able to like people to record themselves playing and then be able to share that to social media if they want to as well, like right from the app. So that's something we've talked about.
Currently, I am using my music stuff for all of those things, for assignments and recordings and playbacks and all that kind of thing. And it's working really well.
Cool. Yeah, and I know that like yeah, a lot of people have really great ways to do that. And it it depends on the size of your studio too. Like some people have so few like me where I can keep track of everything really easily without many tools, because I have so few students. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things we could do to improve the way that Piano Marble works for you guys. So I'm excited to do that. Sorry, I'm taking notes. All right. Is there anything else you guys can think of to add to that reports page or how you want it to work? Or the assignments or anything like that? No. How do you guys feel about it? Do you think it'll be a lot better than it is now? Are you excited about it? Or is it just kind of meh? Got some thumbs up?
We were thinking, as it is right now, it's not necessarily that intuitive for teachers when they first go into the report section, that they're like, wait, where are the reports? You see, it's hard to take the information in. So hopefully this refresh will have it be more intuitive where you're like, oh, these reports and these reports.
Yeah. And you guys are, are elite teachers who really invested in learning how to use it. So you guys, it's probably not as important for you as it is for like a new teacher who's never used Piano Marble before, because you guys know now, you know how to get in there and find what reports you're looking for. But I hope it still makes it, easier on you guys, and hopefully it's not a step back either in that you're like, oh no, now I have to learn something new. So we're going to try to make it as intuitive as possible. So it's just easy to get in there and find everything. But awesome. Thank you guys for listening and giving your feedback. If you think of anything like while you're, in lessons this week and you're like, oh, it would be really cool if I could do this or that, let me know. Send me an email. Because we are actively working on this design right now, so it's a good time to get your ideas in there. If there's something you want, we can make it happen maybe. So yeah, let us know. Okay, go ahead.
I was just wondering if there's any way to do like a progress bar inside the assignment. I have a few kids that really love to see how far in the assignment they're doing. Even in lessons, they'll be like, so how many more songs are we going to do? And they like to keep track of how far they are. So if you could, like, if you're going to practice, I don't know, some kind of a progress bar that says you're almost completed or something.
So we have like the progress like circle for pieces in the library. Are you wanting something like that, or more like um
I'm just thinking like just even a bar that says, so the assignment has 3 things on it.
okay, that's what I was
The
gonna
bar
say.
would
So
say
like
you've done 1 of 3.
okay. Yeah.
Just
So
a
if you have
visual
like
representation of
so
what
rather than for like the individual assignment, more like for the week, this is what you
Yeah,
have to
like-
do and this is how far you are
yeah,
through.
yeah,
Okay.
so that they can get on and be like, oh, I've done half of my stuff already this week or whatever, just so that just a visual representation. And that's obviously
Yeah.
a pretty minimal suggestion. That doesn't have
No,
to
yeah,
happen.
it's cool. I know that the one pushback I'll get is like that we might limit people if we give them,
Sure.
assignments, but teachers don't have to give assignments, if they want to do it a different way. So I think that for those that want to give assignments, that would be a cool feature. So I'll definitely ask about that.
And I think to add to that, what Kara's saying, if with that, creating our own challenge, I guess, I'm not sure what I want to say, their own challenge bar or something where we can create our own challenge. I'm telling you, these kids was just so on it with these, with the challenge for the method
Yeah.
technique, that if we can do it again, because I know they're saying, well, when is the next challenge? I'm like, well, we'll do our own, but I want, if we can see it, here's the challenge, this is our challenge. These are the songs we're going to do in our challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can visualize,
Sure.
have something created as that.
Well,
Like
I do want to mention too, on that, like, student motivation level, we're implementing, or soon we'll sorry. Soon we will be implementing, that's a lot of B's and P's, badges, like when you do a certain thing or you get, a certain new high score on something or whatever, you earn things throughout, kind of like a video game, and you get badges. So I think that will be a really cool thing, especially for those kids that like that extrinsic motivation of getting the prizes and the stars and everything. I think that'll be like a nice extra level to that. And I wonder if there's some way we can include, like, as a teacher, you can set which badges they want to get or something like that. So we'll have to talk about that. But
Lawrence is wondering if it would be kind of like Duolingo.
a little bit, yeah. Kind of like Duolingo. Yeah. Duolingo. I always call it Duolingo, like put a U, an extra U at the end. I don't know why I've always done that, but it will be a little bit like that, yeah. So hopefully it'll be cool. But any other? Oh, go ahead.
I would again like to do a heartfelt shout out for all that Piano Marvel is doing. I mean, we have had an incredible program to use the platform that we have in Piano Marvel. And here we are talking again about more we'd like from you. And it would be wonderful for all you can do. But what you have provided to us as teachers is just beyond. And I really want to give a big shout out.
Thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to hear that, because we, it's what we do all day, every day, is try to make things better for you. So it's great to hear, appreciation for that, and that what we're doing is helping. So thank you so much. Cool. All right. Well, if there's no other, I'll give you guys a chance. So, shout out if there's something else you want to add. If there's nothing else about reports or anything like that, then I think we'll give the time over to Cami, and she can talk about music literacy and language literacy and how that's similar. Oh, somebody's coming in real quick. We've got Esther Jones. We'll let her come in. I'll let her come in. She's new. I don't know if she's ever been in this.
She is in Canada.
Before. She is in Canada. Just moved to Canada.
Hi, Esther.
Hey, Esther.
Welcome.
Thanks for joining.
Hi.
So Esther, really quick, do you want to
Sorry, I'm
introduce?
really bad there today, so sorry.
That's okay. Do you want to introduce yourself really quickly? We're about to start the discussion. So I just wanted you to, introduce yourself, and I don't think we have time to introduce everybody, but if you start coming to these, you'll get to know all these teachers really well. They're really awesome people. So I think you'll really enjoy this community. But do you want to just introduce yourself real quick, like who you are, where you're from? Cool.
Yeah, so anyway, hi everybody. I'm Esther. And yeah, so anyway, I was a teacher in Connecticut, and I moved to Nova Scotia after my dad died of COVID in August. Then I came to Nova Scotia to help my mom, and she was too feeble to live by herself. So I went back to Connecticut, said goodbye to all my students, and anyway, I moved to Nova Scotia to help my mom and take care of her. And so I am kind of excited because I was just teaching out of books in Connecticut, and I was just traveling to all my students' homes, and I never heard about Piano Marvel until I joined the Music Teachers National Association, and I basically didn't have time to join their webinars, but I saw one on sight reading in March, and I said, I've got to go to that one. That's my really bad point. So I went, and I first heard about Piano Marvel, and I was like so excited that I signed up for 2 years. And then I tried to tell them, I had like 44 students, give or take, they came and went. And by March, I probably had 38 students. And I tried my best to convince them how exciting Piano Marvel was. And it was like, I could not excite anybody. And I finally gave up. And so then when I moved to Nova Scotia, like in September, I said, yes, now's my chance to start group lessons with Piano Marvel. But, I'm not very techie. So I got in connection with Cindy White, and she said, oh, she had so many great ideas for me. And so anyway, I was able to pray it through, and then the Lord opened up a room in it's actually the old school building where I went as a child. And so I was so excited. I actually have bought 3 digital pianos, and they haven't arrived yet, but and then my brother's actually getting a big sign made to go up by the road. And it's really funny because right where that's situated is right next to an air base, and there's so much traffic that I'm expecting to get like so many calls. But I wanted to make sure I understood Piano Marvel, because I didn't want them to come and ask questions and say, I'm not really sure, I'll have to ask Michelle. So anyway, I'm really excited too. And I did get in touch with Lori Dunn by email. And she's really, really great ideas too. So anyway, and since then, I've been watching past webinars, like the one on marketing new students, and the one in Lori Dunn's program, and Josh Harris's program. And I've been watching like so many, and just getting so many great ideas. So I'm trying to become certified now under Piano Marvel, and so I'm working on that. So anyway, and oh, by the way, Cammie, like I was watching those. Yes, I was watching those that you sent me. Such great ideas.
Isn't this group amazing?
Oh, absolutely. And I wrote pages and pages of ideas. I just keep stopping the video. And, that's not a good idea. I had 14 pages on the first video I watched. So anyway,
wow.
I actually funny. Yeah, after watching these webinars, I felt like I knew everybody. It's like I love it. I love in yeah.
I was going to say, maybe you don't need our introductions anyway, because you feel like you know us if you've seen us chat all these times. So that's awesome.
It's kind of funny because because I kind of felt like you guys were my friends when I was watching the videos.
Well, you are now.
So,
You're one of us. So we're happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Cool. So let's, everybody, Esther has lots of questions for us too. So all these people here are people who have lots of experience with Piano Marvel, even those that have only been using it for, because we have, Evelyn, who has been here since the inception, and then we have some newer people too, but everyone here has been through some of the experiences that you'll be going through, and we'll be able to help you with things. So definitely feel free to, reach out to them on the Facebook group or ask them for, their contact info, because they'll be great resources for you. They know what they're talking about. So welcome. Cami, do you want to go ahead and explain kind of what it is that you're wanting to talk about today? And then at the end, if we have some time for questions, we can do that.
Okay, Esther, I'm so glad you made it. You made it to the group class. And I want to check with Cheryl. How is my audio? Is it loud enough? Is it crackly? How does it sound?
Perfect.
Oh, good. Okay, I did have it turned down a little bit more than I normally do. So that's probably what you're noticing. So I have been interested in language development. My mom created a reading program for young children. And so she really got into the nitty-gritty of how to develop the ability to read. And my degree is in music therapy. And so I really became interested in the impact of music on your development. And so I had just been writing down some of my ideas, and then Michelle said, "Can you present these to the group?" And I said, "Sure." So I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, I'm sorry, but I can drop a link of just the little outline I'm working from in the chat, and you're welcome to grab that. And I am guessing you guys have a lot to contribute to this conversation, so I'm looking forward to that. Please interrupt me, or I shouldn't say interrupt. Please jump in at any time and share thoughts that you have about it. So I'm going to relate. Oh, Anne, you're so great. She just popped it up there. I'm going to relate learning piano to learning a new language. And there are a lot of similarities, I think. So
really quickly, Cami, do you want me to highlight that, like the notes page, or you? Which would you prefer?
Sure. I'll still be able to see people, right? If you do that,
I think so.
Try it and let me see. Okay. If I can't see you, make sure to audibly jump in. I won't be able to tell if you're. Oh yeah, I can. Okay. I can't see everybody though, so still audibly jump in. Okay. So I was thinking about how, you don't need to see me though. That's okay.
No, it's good. I think it's great to see you and your notes at the same time.
Okay. So I know as a baby, you start out in the womb and you hear the heartbeat, you hear the rhythms of the mother's body, you hear the things outside of the womb. And so it's really a listening experience. You're not really making a whole lot of sounds at that point. It's a great way to start the process of learning in piano as well. I think children who are raised in homes where they listen to a lot of music really often have more of a sense of the musicality in music. So that's a great way to start out. And then when they get out, they start babbling. Michelle has examples of this in our meeting sometimes with her little Asher that will be making sounds, and they start to play around with making sounds. So the baby's instrument is their body, their vocal cords. On the piano, of course, that's the equivalent of have you seen kids play around and just hit different notes and listen to how they sound and that? Sometimes adults will do that too. Mm-hmm. And they also are playing around with pitch dynamics and articulations. You will hear, in the grocery store the other day, I heard this kid do this blood-curdling scream. He wasn't upset. He was playing around with a sound. And his mom was like, shh. The kid would just smile and do it again. And so they play around with these different parts of musicality even before they're forming words. And they don't yet know the names and symbols for those things. They're just playing around and they're listening and they're adjusting to create what they want and to get the feedback they want from their listener. Often they will change what they're doing based on the response of their caregiver. Please jump in. I know you guys have so much to say about this. And then they start mimicking. So the sounds of those around them, including how the speech is created. If you notice different languages, children who learn different languages, they have really a lot of nuances to the language. And when you learn it not natively, getting those nuances right is really challenging. And the baby is playing around with those nuances and taking all of that information in. And they're listening to the rise and fall of the voice. They're listening to when they take a breath or pause. They're listening to the tension and release in that expression, the inflections, the nuances. And in piano, this is similar to the flow in the music, the expression in the music. It can, if somebody has not developed this ability to add these nuances to their expression, it can be difficult to understand them and difficult to enjoy that process. So like if you listen to an audiobook reader and they monotone, they never change their voice, there's no pauses, everything just keeps going, it is really hard to take that information in. And if
or like when you hear like a when it's like automated, like they didn't actually read it. It's like a bot that's like putting sounds together to make words, but it's not the way we do it. It is really hard to understand that.
Yeah, it's kind of like trying to be a human, not quite getting it.
Yes.
Yeah, and same thing if you are speaking to somebody who has whatever language you're speaking, they're speaking it as a second language. Like I have had customer service calls where they're using English words, but the nuances, the expression, the rise and fall, the pauses, the placement of everything is all mixed up. Mm-hmm. And my brain can't even decipher it, even though they're using the right words. This can happen in music too. They're playing the right notes, they're playing the right chords, but musically, emotionally, we are not going to experience it the way that it could be experienced, that it could be received if those nuances aren't really understood. Did you have something, Valerie?
I did. This comes to mind where there's a lady singing to her baby, and I want to say it was on Facebook or something, and the baby actually showed through his facial expressions, and even, I mean, the song was very pretty, and the baby actually was crying.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone's seen that one, where, I mean, you could see the little bottom lip curl, and then every time she did a certain tone, the baby would look, and then when she got to that one special part, then there's another, the baby, showed with the little pouty lip, and I mean, it was just almost like the baby felt that.
Oh yeah. And of course music it does convey emotions, because emotions are energy in motion, and because music creates all those connections and all of the nuances and dynamics and flow. That's a good example. If people grow up, like we were saying, listening to all these music or having people in their home that speak a language fluently, they are going to have a much better chance of really being expressive, because a lot of that develops during that time of listening and playing around with those things. And I just made this note that, in learning a new language, often the best is just to be surrounded by the language. And if you think about that, most of your learning is happening orally. Most of it is you're listening to it and taking the information in. Something that's interesting is like when, I don't know, maybe one of you could say this, but when we had children, we spoke to them not with really simple phrases, but just the way we normally speak. And we try to be articulate and use a broad vocabulary and, express things in full sentences and those kinds of things. Our kids have been praised for how expansive their vocabulary it is and how articulate they are. Watch me not be able to speak, but they can. And I wonder if it's because they grew up with that kind of speaking from a very young age. I feel like there is an argument for speaking in simple ways, and there is also an argument for speaking with a broad type of way. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but just something interesting.
That is actually, that's something that, like, I have little ones. I'm probably the only one that has as little of kids as I do in this group right now. And the doctors do recommend now that you speak in complete sentences, and you can use, like, kinder tones and like that somewhat baby talk, but not incorrect English, because it doesn't help them with their language skills. So yeah, that's what doctors do recommend.
There you go. So I wonder in piano, we do our boot camps, which is reading, but it's the same concept where you're being exposed to a broad, like more complex information, and you're just taking in the information you're familiar with. But I think learning is happening even though you're not able to take it all in. There's still some, maybe that immersion plays a role in that process. Early composers played around a lot with improvisation. So they're a really good example of this concept of coming from a place of improvisation. And that's where a lot of their compositions originated. Several famous musicians never learned to read music. I am not promoting that to me, this is equivalent to saying you don't need to read, because there's some people who have done amazing things without being able to read. True. But reading opens up so many doors and so many options. But just so you know, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Wonder, this is Google, so I don't know how accurate this is, but Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Wonder, Hans Zimmer, Taylor Swift, Bob Dylan, Aretha Franklin, the Beatles. These are some musicians who supposedly never learned how to read music. So this skill of listening and playing around is really valuable and can create incredible musicians because they really rely on that listening component.
Can I add? Sorry, it's
Please
okay
do.
if I add something. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of things that I will do with my students is we connect the piano to art. So we'll take a picture of, just think like a meadow and there's bright sun, and you try to have that student, how does this make you feel? And they just kind of get that opportunity. And so for my population, we're primarily working with individuals who have been refugees, but making the connection between how can I express this has really seemed to help, because then you can transition into, this is a picture of a lightning strike. The word we use for that is forte. How does this make you feel? Like, how does lightning sound? And I think that a lot of that development is really key.
That's interesting, because in music therapy, one of the things that we do is we have them draw or paint or color while they listen to the piece. And then we have them describe what they've created to us. And it's part of kind of a therapeutic process. And so you might actually be having therapeutic results with that as well, and kind of what you're doing. I love that. That's great. Let's see here. So then they start playing around with putting sounds together or connected one after another. And so they start to create recognizable words. And in piano, this would be playing notes together, so intervals, chords, and melody. And then they start putting those words together for small statements and phrases. And they play around until they get it right. Statements usually go down in pitch, and questions usually go up in pitch. So my mom used to read to us every night when we were going to bed, and I grew to love oral reading, like listening to someone read, because she was so expressive. And so this, speaking expressively is going to transfer to whoever's learning from you. And it's the same with music. If you're musically expressive, that likely will transfer as well. At first, they may not use everything correctly, but they need that feedback, because I would always have my kids would say, hold you. and I wouldn't say, do you want me to hold you? Because they would get confused. But I would say, hold me. And they'd go, hold me, because it's a little backwards from what we would think they need in that moment. But we still thought it was really cute that they did that. But let's see. And so in piano, this is just equivalent to creating musical thoughts, statements, and cadences. And then they start forming complete sentences with subjects, verbs, and other parts of speech. And again, there's a lot of feedback in this too. Our kids would always say, how sound this? Not a real complete sentence, super cute, but we would say, how does this sound? And then they repeat that. And same thing in piano, that the teacher says, this feedback, well, what about this? And then the student, they can understand that better. Let's see here. This equates in piano to passages. Then they start forming complete sentences with subject, verb, parts of speech. They put the sentences together to tell a story or explain something in more detail. So this development happens over years as they're figuring all this stuff out. But in piano, this is creating passages, movements, complete pieces. And now the student is becoming more literate, fluent, and proficient, a little bit at a time. And we'll talk about those three things at the end a little bit. How am I doing? Okay. So at this point, the path to reading begins, or somewhere in this process, the path to reading begins. Some people start this pretty early on. Some start from birth, just introducing these things. So it can happen at the same time, but when I still think the listening is such a critical component that is often in traditional teaching secondary instead of primary, and that can influence the student's ability to have that full breadth of expression and nuances in their music. So then they start reading, and now they're going to be introduced to the names of the different letters. And so in piano, you're learning the names of the notes and how to play them. And they learn to associate the name with the sound that it makes. So they're adding a layer. They've got the sound world. Now they're adding a name to that sound. And then they attach the name and the name and sound to a symbol. So now there's a third layer, which I think this is so complex. No wonder it's hard to learn a language or learn piano. And so the written letter in language and the note and written letter in music. So that, and then I don't know why, especially in English, we make it way more interesting by saying there can be multiple sounds associated with a symbol or a name. So the child has to learn all of the different sounds that symbol or name can make. And it's similar in music. So in written words, we have uppercase and lowercase letters, and we have long and short sounds. And in music, we have notes in the treble staff and notes in the bass staff. Let's put them on a different line in space just to make it interesting. Why not? And we have enharmonic spellings. Is that G sharp, or is it A flat, or is it B? What is it? Double flat? I'm not sure if I said that right. But students are like, why? Can it just have one name? Shout out to Spanish. It makes one sound. Like one symbol name makes one sound. Not in music, not in English. Sight words versus sounding words out. So young children who are learning how to read, they often learn sight words differently than they learn how to sound words out. And they're different skills. Mm-hmm. So this is important when teaching how to read, that they do need to have the sight words, be able to read. And in music, this would be equivalent to sight reading, but they also need to be able to learn how to sound it out. And this would be equivalent to reading, but not sight reading. So it's like learning music, but not sight reading the music. Which is funny. All of this came about because I was researching sight reading and I just go deep, and that's where it went. So let's see here. So in piano, did I skip something here? So we start to define and give names to this parts of speech. So now they can read but they don't have a name for this is a noun, this is a verb, this is a preposition, this goes in this order because this is a hanging participle. I think that one's so funny. I don't know why I feel like that's such a funny name. And they put them all in the proper statement or proper order. In piano, this might be the names of the chords, root, dominant, common chord progressions, cadences. This cadence is really a question. This cadence is the end we have completed kind of thing. And then they introduce writing because physical development comes later for these students than. So developmentally, speaking comes before recognizing symbols and names, and symbols and names comes before that small motor development. Now, this can vary. Some children develop quicker in one area or another, but generally speaking, that's the order. So writing with proper form and the ability to communicate. I think this is really interesting because it's one thing to be able to read, and you do have to interpret. Well, I guess I'll explain. So with writing, you have to be able to communicate something without using facial expressions, without using body language, without using vocal inflections, without any of those oral and visual components. You have to communicate how you're trying to express that without those. So being a good writer is an entirely different skill from being a good reader or from being a good speaker. You'll know somebody who's an excellent speaker, but you ask them to write something and it's really hard to understand. Or somebody who's an excellent writer, but they're really not that great at speaking. That doesn't happen as often, but that can happen too. And in piano, you have to use symbols only to communicate the expression of musicality. And this is a big skill for teaching students because they'll think, I have something called score cloud. They play it, it puts notes on a page, and they're like, oh, I wrote that. Which they did, but it's not communicating any of the nuances or musicality to the reader, and it's not written in a way that's easy to read, and that's a whole nother level for them to go through. And so as far as literacy, fluency, and proficiency, you can have different levels in every single one of these. So you may be able to literacy, you may be able to read, write, or speak, but it may not be fluent, meaning it may not have a flow and be connected. And proficient, you may be able to read at a very basic level or write or speak, but you may not be proficient. You may not have a really expansive ability to express yourself. And so students may have strengths in any one of these areas. But my question to you, after going through all of this, is how do you feel about the importance of introducing the listening component and the oral component first in music? That's my question.
I imagine Ann Q has some things to say about this.
I know.
It's a lot about
how did you figure that out? How did you figure that out? Because while I was listening to this thing, I was being more and more amazed. Let's Play Music is practically patterned step by step on exactly what you did. And that's exactly what we do with our children. And honestly, I was thinking, Cami, you should be a speaker at one of our symposiums.
Oh,
because this information would be just so exciting for all teachers who have been through Let's Play Music. It's just really, so is that what you figured out, Michelle? That why I'd have something to say?
So I've known of Let's Play Music for a long time, but just recently my kids started taking Sound Beginnings Let's Play Music classes. So that's for like the little babies, and young toddlers. And so that's my first actual being in the class, and the first couple of classes I was like, this is fun. They're having a fun time. We'll see if anything comes of it, And oh my gosh, Asher, I don't know. He's pretty young, he's not even a year old yet. So it's kind of hard to tell what he is and isn't. I'm sure he's absorbing a lot, but you can't really see that much yet. But with Gwen, she's 3, and oh my gosh, every week has memorized a new song that she sings, or several.
I don't even know the Sound Beginnings program. I said I never even did the Sound Beginnings, but when you get into Red Balloons and Blue Bugs, you're going to be even more thrilled.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I was like, I'll try it out. We'll see how this works, but I think I will have my kids do it until they're out of it until they're 6, because I think it's
Well, then
so
they can
valuable.
then they can do bridge with me.
Yeah. Seriously though, I just the way that because it's about
beautiful.
childhood development through music. So it's
Yeah.
teaching a lot of things like reading and counting and things like that, but through music. So they're also learning musical skills as well, but it's just fun for them. So it is like exactly like Cami was saying. I think Let's Play Music was designed off of these principles, these scientific
Definitely, yes.
principles of how a child develops.
Yeah.
So I thought you would be a good person to speak to that
Wow.
question because you teach it. So yeah.
I was just amazed. Yeah.
Well-
Beautiful job, Cami. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And how often do you have a student that you are teaching them a song and they are reading it, but it is far from musical? It's just like, oh, bless your soul. Like nobody's going to want to listen to that except a very loving grandparent. Like that's probably where that's going to end. But if they really come first from the musical, and I know Aaron's talked a little bit about this with sight reading. He says one of the things he postulates is that really good sight readers always start with musicality. Like they actually read musically while they're sight reading. Mm-hmm. That's like not a secondary thing. It's a primary thing. And I think, I don't know if that's, the case or not, but I do notice with my students, because I don't teach them the way that I just described. I teach them reading first, and I have the problems associated with that because of that. I love the idea of Let's Play Music or different things like that because the musicality is really strongly embedded in them before they start recognizing all the symbols and the names and, reading and writing and all of those types of things. Question, what about adults? Because, they're going to learn a little differently than children, but do some of these principles still apply?
Wow, you're on it. You're prophetic today.
So we've been highly trained in the concept that the music and the scientific background for the music window is ages 3 to 8. When the brain best absorbs musical concepts is between 3 and 8. And while we're trying to adapt the program now to 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, it has to be adjusted quite a bit, and it's not quite as easy because the children, our little kids learn by listening, by imitating, by playing all the time, and these concepts just sink right into them. But it is supposed to be more difficult for the older people, and I think it is. I really do.
Yeah. So what I was saying also added on the extreme. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just like it's hard for us as older people past 8 or 10 or whatever to learn a language. I mean, I have I'm not good at that. I'm not good at learning language. It's because we are not going through this whole process that Cami just outlined.
Maybe similar to being a native speaker versus somebody who can become very fluent and proficient, but not necessarily native.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Go ahead, Valerie. It seems like you have something.
Oh yeah. So with the adults to the extreme, I had one of my adult students been with me for a long time, and he's actually playing "Can You Feel the Love Tonight," which he said, "I'm not feeling the love." So, but what we found is he said, I'm a better aural person if I know the tune, first of all, or if something in pattern form, if my eyes see it, and then I first listen to it. And then, that was one of the things. So in that "Can You Feel the Love Tonight," there's an intro to there. And he said, for some reason, I just can't get this on the onset of getting ready to play it because I don't know the tune of that.
Interesting. Okay.
So when he's playing it, because it has like a little intro, da 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 da. I mean, and it's just not keying to hear only until it gets to the beginning of the first verse, then he starts playing it. But I told him to separate and start playing just the melody. Just play that melody until you start humming it. Get to the point where you're humming it. And so then I think that again, we're training those new neural pathways, which is the new, an aural part of the brain. So I think that's so important. This is so good for both extremes, children and adults.
Yeah, well, and they did used to think plasticity kind of stalled after like 8, 9 years old. But what they're finding is it's always plastic, your brain, it's just slower. Yes. So maybe the process for adults, as far as the musicality component, may take a little longer to develop. And that's helpful for them to understand, because then they can have proper expectations of what to expect, because they see kids and they compare themselves to kids and they don't understand the brain development is different at different stages in our lives, but so beneficial for us at any time in our life, any age. Yeah. What are some other ways that all of you teachers really help with the really understanding the expression, nuancy, and stuff like that before the reading? Does anybody else do that?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was asking a repeat of the question. I was helping go into something. So are you saying you have them listen to the piece before you have them play it? Is that it, or no?
Well, I was just going to say, does anybody else do something to really work on the nuances and expression before reading? Does anybody take that approach in anything, kind of like Valerie and we're talking about? If you don't, that makes sense, because it's not traditional. I just wondered.
Can I say something real quick? I took as an adult, I started taking piano lessons again just because I wanted to be a better piano teacher. And this cute piano teacher, it's weird to have your piano teacher be younger than you. That was hard for me at first. So as an adult, now that if I were to teach adults, I would be like, I kind of understand that dichotomy of like, oh, you're younger than me. But she recommended with every song that I was learning to go onto YouTube and watch several different versions
Performance of it. Mm-hmm.
And at first I was like, no, my piano teacher always said, don't listen to it. She really wanted me to be strong in reading the music. And so she wouldn't allow me to listen to the songs, which I think is really interesting. So it kind of went against how I was taught to learn a song, because she wanted me to be really strong in reading. So I kind of fought against her a little bit. I was like, well, but I want to learn it first. She's like, no, go listen to it. And not just one version. She's like, listen to several and decide how you like it. And I was like, but which way is the right way? She's like, there isn't a right way. And I was like, what? So I think that was a really neat thing for me to learn, that it is up to me how the song sounds. Within certain boundaries, of course, but to listen to it and to listen to several versions of it and to listen to it a lot. And I think that's important.
And if I'm not mistaken, some of the great composers actually would change their composition every time they performed it. Like it wasn't exact every time. And so you have different renditions, but my college professor said the exact same thing, Kara. She had me listen to several different interpretations, performances of a piece before I even started learning it. And then sight reading would be where we would focus on, no, you don't get any oral prep. This is your reading, work. But another thing, I know Evelyn is not mentioning this, but because I know Evelyn a little better now, one thing she has her students do daily is improvise. So I think that's an excellent thing for adults and older students to do, to work on really getting into some of this musicality and expression and nuances and things like that, because they're not burdened by reading and then it can open doors for composing for them as well.
Another thing, if I could add, Cami, I have my students dance to the music.
Mm-hmm.
So I have them, put on one of these recordings and dance to the music. And a challenge I would give to everyone listening: go onto YouTube and find Pachelbel's canon, find a really nice rendition, and dance to it. Start out with your eyes closed, just move, just move. Hockey Bell will take you to another place. And that is what we're talking about, where we want to go when we're sharing our music. What we want to teach the students is to be in their music, to feel their music. Dancing to the music is another way to really, really connect to it.
I didn't know you were going to say that, but in my notes, I put music is to the ears as dance is to the body. And I'm sure that's a quote somewhere. Somebody has to have said that at some point, but I feel that that just brings it more fully into their body, that they have that movement they're actually experiencing.
I can remember when I was young and everybody was out of the house. My mother had a lot of opera music. And of course, they were records. And I can, to this day, I can close my eyes and I can remember my dances to that opera music. So it kind of has a life of its own. But I still remember that little girl dancing in the living room to the opera music.
Well,
I can go there.
It's interesting because I've had adult students and they're going to submit a video of their performance and they're like, oh, I got my recording, but I'm moving in the recording. They're distressed about this, that they're moving in the recording. And I'm like, no, that's fine. That's good. That's fine. You know, that I think sometimes performers feel like they have to sit tall and still and don't move. And I think that really restricts whatever they're experiencing. And of course, some people are very expressive with movement and visually you're like, where are they going? What's going on there? And some people are not quite as expressive, but that's an interesting thing, that there must be something in their head that says a piano player sits up straight and doesn't move, and that's proper. And I don't think that allows for full expression. I don't think of any professional performer, unless you guys know of any, that doesn't have quite a bit of movement while they're performing. So, but that's all I have. Sorry, I went a little bit over. Did we lose Michelle? Let's see. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I was saying I'm here. I was just moving to Gwen's room because she wanted to play basketball. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Cami. That was really awesome, really interesting. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Esther did have some questions, I think, or maybe not. I know she, wanted the opportunity to talk to you guys. So if anybody has time to stay behind, that'd be great. But we'll go ahead and stop the recording now. So thank you guys so much for being here.